What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to CLAO's Network. Today I wanted to look at some rogue-ish decks, some, non-meta or less popular decks that were not featured on my top 10 decks or top 20 decks videos this week, but are seeing some results in online events, and I think that these decks, even if they need some touching up from their current forms, are showing potential. I think they have potential for whatever reasons I will talk about for each of these 6 deck lists that we look at in the brand new Astral Radiance metagame of the Pokemon trading card game. So I will be on play.limitlesstcg.com for all of these deck lists. So shout out to Limitless for creating wonderful resources for the Pokemon TCG community. And before we get into this video, shout out to PotownStore.com, PokemonCard.io, Beast Coast Pokemon, CardCheaperGames.com, and Dragon Shield Sleeves for being proud sponsors of the channel. So the first one I wanted to look at is an Arceus Tapu Koko VMAX Hisuian Decidueye V-Star deck. Yes, it's a mouthful. So Arceus V-Star paired with Tapu Koko VMAX has been a thing that we've seen from Japanese results. Of course, Japan gets the cards before we do, so they got Palkia V-Star, saw that Palkia V-Star was so strong, and started playing some lightning-type Pokemon that were not having as much love prior to Palkia coming out. So Tapu Koko VMAX, 320 HP, really bulky. Does the max shock for 180, and then if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, their active is now paralyzed. So even if you're not hitting for weakness, even if you're not knocking out the defending Pokemon, if they've taken a lead, you can paralyze them. This goes really well with the new Roxanne supporter card, that if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, they shuffle their hand draw 2, you shuffle your hand draw 6. So you can go like Roxanne, Path to the Peak, and then swing with Tapu Koko VMAX. But Tapu Koko V and VMAX are both great against Palkia V-Star, which is why the card has some new relevance. But we also have the Hisuian Decidueye V and V-Star here. So the Hisuian Decidueye V is actually worth including even without the V-Star. It has the close quarter shooting attack that does 100 damage, and this attack's damage is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So that means that you can attack into the new Miltank. And Miltank has been quite popular with the Miracle Body, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. Without the Hisuian Decidueye V in here, we don't have anything that's going to attack into this Miltank reliably. Of course, we could use Bibarel, but with a double turbo and a basic energy, Tail Smash does 80, and if you flip a coin in its tails, the attack doesn't even do anything. So, Hisuian Decidueye V adds a really good attacker for the Miltank decks, really turning around that matchup, because without it, you would just scoop to Miltank pretty much. And then the Hisuian Decidueye V-Star that you'll evolve into in matchups where you want a fighting attacker, and then it's not the Miltank deck. Hisuian Decidueye V-Star is 270 HP, fighting type, and it has the Somersault Feathers attack, fighting colorless to do 160, so we'll say 140 with a double turbo, and you can discard up to 3 energy cards from your hand, and this attack does 30 more damage for each card you discard in this way. So if it's doing 140 with a double turbo and you discard 3 energy from your hand, you'll be doing 230, but with a belt, you might not even have to discard any energy if you're hitting something that's weak to fighting, which is really nice. And then at the end of the day, you're an Arceus-focused deck, so you have that built-in consistency of Starbirth and Trinity Nova, the Bibarel for draw support, and a pretty heavy supporter line as well, keeping it consistent that way as well. So I actually, I'm a big fan of the idea behind this deck, and I think the deck itself is pretty good. Next, we're going to look at an Arceus V-Star Charizard VMAX deck, which people are definitely scared off of this with Palkia around, but you have ways to deal with Palkia. You know, you can just be an Arceus deck. You can also use the new Weirdeer V. So Weirdeer, I think it might be pronounced Wordeer, but I like saying Weirdeer. It's more fun. It has the ability Frontier Road. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active, you may move any amount of energy from your other Pokemon to it. And then Psy Bash does 40 for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you can get, like, 6 energy, even 5 energy on the board, and then use a Magma Basin and then attach for turn, you do 280 with 7 energy. So you can one-shot a Palkia, one-shot an Arceus, one-shot any V-Star without Big Charm on it. So the word here is pretty good. And, you know, Charizard VMAX can still one-shot Palkia V-Star. You can just train Nova to a Charizard V, and if they don't have the boss that turn to knock it out, you can evolve into Charizard VMAX and pop whatever they've got going on. It does leave a 3-prize Pokemon out there weak to water, so it will depend on the game state if they're able to return the knockout or not. And then it also has the Radiant Heat Ran with a Raging Blast, 70 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So if you Magma Basin to it on turn 1, which Magma Basin puts 2 damage counters on the Pokemon it excels in energy to, and then Magma Basin again the following turn, that'll be 4 damage on your Radiant Heatran, and you're doing 280 with a single prize Pokemon without a choice belt attached. So that's pretty good. So I don't think this deck is completely out of the metagame yet, like some people might have thought. I think it definitely has some merit. Next, let's look at this Water Box deck. Now, this Water Box deck is not exactly rogue. I think people do know about it. It's just not being played at high quantities, and it was a deck that was already being played over in Japan. So this Water Box deck functions off of Frostmoth's Ice Dance. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your bench to water Pokemon. So stage 1 Pokemon with Rain Dance, pretty good. And we have a few different Pokemon we want to be attaching to. We have the Radiant Greninja with Moonlight Shuriken that you discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and then you do 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. This is really strong, especially considering we can use this. The Greninja gets knocked out, and then we use Nessa. Put up to 4 in any combination of water Pokemon and water energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. And you do it all over again. You just Ice Dance back down some water energy to Radiant Greninja and get back to business. We also have the new Starmie V with Energy Spiral, Water to do 50 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon, which is a situational attacker, but can be very good depending on the deck you're playing against. And the other main attacker is going to be the Crabominable V, which Destroyer Punch does 90 plus 60 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So if you quick shooting them once, this is already doing 210 damage in addition to the 20 from the quick shooting. If you quick shooting them twice, this one shots anything. So this deck could also maybe consider even playing a Galarian Zigzagoon, or maybe a second quick shooting, or maybe another scoop up net if you wanted to be using Crabominable more consistently. But this deck is pretty good. I definitely think it's underrated. I think it's better than the amount it's being played and the amount of talk around it. The Inteleon engine, of course, is very strong. The downside is that this deck gets hard shut down by Jolteon with Memory Capsule from Vivid Voltage that shuts off all water abilities. So maybe this deck could adapt to play some Iridas and Tool Scrapper maybe, or just probably take the hard loss to that deck if you go second. If you go first, you could maybe snipe their EVs with Moonlight Shuriken, but going second, it would probably be quite hard to overcome the Jolteon with Memory Capsule. Next, we have a control deck. So this control deck was originally piloted by Sander Wojcik, but we've got some new cards going on. Now, instead of needing to play the Altaria Evolution line or transforming into it from Zoroark, Miltank is now in the format. Miltank with the Miracle Body that prevents all damage done to it by Pokemon V is a lot better in this deck than Altaria because you don't have to evolve into it. It's a basic Pokemon. You can get it down more consistently, and that means you have more room in your deck now. And that is great for control decks. We can play the new card Silene, flip 2 coins, and then you put a number of cards up to the number of heads that you flipped from your discard pile on top of your deck. Control decks love getting resources back. And everything else in here was already in the deck previous to Astral Radiance, but this deck doesn't really get a lot of talk because it's incredibly difficult to pilot well. And I also think Miltank gave it a little boost as well as Silene, so I think it was worth bringing up here. Especially with Miltank seeming to be pretty good in the metagame right now, but it does bode poorly for this deck if people are countering Miltank because of how popular it has become. Next we have, look at that, a Miltank deck. So this is a new one for me. This is Miltank with Mightyena. The new Mightyena has the Hustle Bark ability. If your opponent has any VMAX in play, this Pokemon's attacks cost 3 colorless less. So it attacks for free if they have VMAXs in play and you swing 160. That means you'll one-shot a Mew VMAX, and if the Mew player has an Oricorio down, Radiant Hawlucha's Big Match buffs up your attacks enough against Pokemon VMAX that you still one-shot the Mew VMAX. And then if you're playing a matchup where Mightyena doesn't really do much, you're just a Miltank deck. You're slapping some Miltanks down. You got your Miracle Body going. Can't be hit by Pokemon V. You have Toughness Cape. You have 4 Charon's Care. Powerful Colorless Energy. Twin Energy. And the new Jubilife Village, which I haven't gotten to see used yet. Once during each player's turn, that player may shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 5 cards. If they do, their turn ends. So that's a really awesome stadium that's pretty unique. We don't get a lot of stadiums like that, so I'm glad to see that being used. And then the last deck we'll look at is actually kind of a Hisuian Decidueye V-Star focused deck, which we did look at Hisuian Decidueye at the beginning of the video, but this one's a little more focused around Hisuian Decidueye V-Star. With the Cotton Lift Eldegoss, that once a turn you could search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, so you can get those energy for the Somersault Feathers. And it's also a nice bonus that you get to play the Gossifleur with Call for Family that searches your deck for 3 basic Pokemon and benches them, which is a really strong turn 1 going second play. And this deck also plays Grant, which says during this turn, your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. And during your turn, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to get Grant back at any time if you need it. And so this pairs pretty well with Clara. Since we already are playing the Eldegoss to search for energy, Decidueye wants to get energy back and then discard it. The Clara plus Baby Moltres pairs well. Since we're playing all this basic energy and ways to get basic energy. So the Clara can be used for the Decidueye, or it can be used for the Galarian Moltres as well. The cast form is just here as a free retreat Pokemon, in case you were wondering about that. And that's going to be all for today. But if there's more decks out there that are flying under the radar you think is a rogue deck that has potential, let me know about it in the comments down below, or feel free to come into the Discord and talk about it. We have a bunch of different channels in the Discord. We have one just for general Pokemon, one for sharing deck lists, PTCG live troubleshooting, and talk about bugs and stuff there. And just if you need general help or have questions about Pokemon TCG events or rulings, you could always feel free to ask about it in there, and someone's usually around to answer and help with the questions. So Discord link in the description down below. I don't think I mentioned that enough. We have like 1,000 members in there, so be sure to join that and subscribe to the channel for daily Pokemon TCG content. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time here on Celios Network.